Hello, I'm Oral, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. With me is a very interesting guest. Been here many, many times before. He's now back after the big bloodbath of August 19th parliamentary election here in St. Maarten. It was quite interesting, right? Mr. Brison, how are you doing?
Yeah, it was revelatory, but on the other hand, it was not quite unexpected because we see many of the same characters back on the scene again.
But I gotta say, it was a bloodbath. I mean, you see some of the biggest losers, and people didn't expect that.
Well, you are right. The biggest loser in this election was Christopher Emmanuel. He was a three-time loser. He lost his seat in Parliament, and he lost the two ministries he had. Both of them are gone. So he, in this election, was the biggest loser. He's lost his seat in Parliament, and it looks, I would dare say, that his grip on his party is shaky because he's no longer in the party, and our next individual represents the party in Parliament. So that grip on that party is shaky, but for sure the two ministries he used to control, they are gone, and his seat in Parliament is gone. So he has been the biggest loser in this whole out of this whole election, I would say.
Yeah, and the thing is that people are surprised. People are saying that the voters in St. Maarten are changing.
Well, whatever it is he did or did not do, the end result is that he has lost big time. Then the other thing about this election was, and that is something that I do not know if we were aware of it, but on the same day of the election, it was August the 19th,
right?
Koninkrijk's dossier. Koninkrijk's dossier is a online newspaper that it calls itself the Kingdom Dossier, the Kingdom File. It's written by a guy called René Zwart, who has very close connections to the Dutch establishment and also to the Dutch Minister of Kingdom Affairs and so forth. I have a feeling that he's connected to them, and he appears to be a type of agent provocateur. And he wrote an interesting article on the same day of the election. It was headlined, and it was not directed so much towards us because it was written in Dutch. People in St. Maarten don't speak Dutch, so we are not his target audience. But the headline was, St. Maarten, a country that does not have politicians who are able to run a country. The article was devastating. He said, among other things, that the politicians on St. Maarten have caused about as much harm as the average hurricane. He pointed out that most of them, the only ambition to get into government, into Parliament, is to secure financial position and gains for themselves and their families. And the most telling thing he pointed out in that particular article was, this is the 12th government we haven't in 14 years. But his point is that St. Maarten is administratively bankrupt because it does not have politicians who are capable of running a country. So that article came out on election morning.
So, Mr. Brison, everything that you listed there that was in that article, fact or fiction?
Well, you know, it is not for me to say whether they are fact or fiction. The point is that he has brought these things forward in a very public way. And as an agent provocateur, you have to understand what his objective is. His objective is to provide or to prepare the grounds, because he asks that in the article, what is Holland waiting for to put St. Maarten on the higher supervision? He asks that in the article.
You know, in case you just joined us, this is Oral Gibbs Live. My guest is Mr. Denicio Brison. Mr. Brison is a jurist. We're here speaking with him. He's also president and founder of the Pro Swaliga Foundation, right?
Yes.
And it's always a pleasure having him here in the program. I think the things that he mentioned are quite relevant to St. Maarten.
Yes.
Although we may not...
Sometimes the truth is hard to face, but here is this outsider because he doesn't live in St. Maarten, and he knows our doings, our actions, it would appear quite intimately. But the most important thing is, why did he release that article on election day? Those are the things that, that also came to my attention about the election. And exactly the same day of the election, that article would appear.
Yeah.
And it was not written for St. Maarten people because it was in Dutch. If he wanted St. Maarten people to read it, it would have been in English. It was written in Dutch.
Yeah. But how you feel about, for all my life, it's been this friction, tension between St. Maarten and the Dutch government. And it seems like it's not improving at all. Every time I go to the Netherlands, I'm received very well. People treat me nicely. They ask where you're from. They're happy. They want to come to St. Maarten. The average person on the street in the Netherlands, I think, don't have the kind of view or negative view that the establishment and the government have about this island. That's my opinion on it.
You brought up a very interesting point. I was reading an article in some a Dutch magazine, and it said basically there are about 20 to 25 civil servants in the Dutch ministry who know about the islands here really. The rest of the people have not a clue about what's going on. But it's that small clique. They are the decision makers, or they surround the decision makers, and they influence how the decision makers think. But it is never more than 20 or 25 people who really know about the islands. The politicians, they are fed by these people, because if you hear guys like Wilders and Bosman and so forth carrying on about Antilles, you would think they live here. And they paint us. I had a friend in Holland, she lives in Holland, and she told me, man, I feel so bad about St. Maarten because during the election, the last couple of months, she said they really blackguard St. Maarten in certain political circles in Holland. For example, Bosman has openly called us criminals. One of them said that he was 65 years old, and he said he has heard 3 things about the Antilles since he was a baby: corruption, money laundering, drug trafficking. And this is a Dutch politician saying these things. So the people in the street might not even be aware of that, but among certain decision makers, their image of us, not only of us, of Aruba and Curaçao also, is of these semi-gangster paradises in the island, in the sun.
Have you ever gone to Gert Wilders' Facebook page?
No. I've never been to Holland myself, so I don't know anything but what they think.
Just his Facebook page.
No, I've never been there.
You should check it out.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing, I do not know. I'm not on Facebook, I do not know. But when he makes these pronouncements, for example, right now, I heard one of them has a proposal to ask the islands to become independent, which has been going on from the 1970s. We've been hearing that. And periodically it is regurgitated and brought forward again. So
the same people again.
Yeah. And this guy from this article, he belongs to that clique.
But if you have some time, check out his page, because then you get to see the response from many of the Dutch voters who agree with Wilders, and it's fascinating. Yeah,
they would agree with him because he comes from a certain sector of the Dutch community, and I believe that the people who will answer and respond to him probably think along the same lines like him.
Yeah.
They see us as useless baggage.
Well, in a way, Gert Wilders would have been good for St. Maarten, in a way.
maybe not.
Because we drag off it so often. We are indecisive. We can't make decisions often in a timely manner. And I think him being at the top would have forced St. Maarten to do what St. Maarten didn't want to do.
I do not know if that works. And the reason for that is this. St. Maarten was placed under higher supervision for about 2 to 3 years in the 1990s.
Right.
Remember those days?
Yeah, I was working for government at the time, so I'm very familiar.
Remember they brought on a battalion of Dutch experts and fixers and bureaucrats to fix it. If they had done a good job after those 3 years of being in charge, St. Maarten should have been running perfect, because they came down with a stated objective to clean up matters and to straighten out the island. So I do not know if Wilders would be able to do it because they were here for 3 years and they went away and they're still claiming that it's not cleaned up.
You know, the political culture, and I think there was a report, I think it was the Poirier report.
The Poirier report, I know that report intimately.
First mentioned that political culture very beautifully. In a way, it's so powerful that not even the Dutch can't really change it.
Well, that is probably true because St. Maarten has a very peculiar and different culture than the other islands. For example, just before the election came on, the police put out on 2 occasions notices warning people, don't buy votes and don't sell votes. Right. I live in Aruba all my life. I never saw that. You never see it in Curacao. St. Maarten is the only place where the police comes out to put out a public notice and saying, do not buy your vote, do not buy votes, and do not sell votes.
But votes were bought and sold crazy in this election still.
Well, you know, there's a saying that goes around that St. Maarten voters don't care about that stuff. What they really want are those envelopes stuffed with cash. So the bottom line is that the police, the authorities came out and published it not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Do not buy or sell votes. It's a criminal offense.
In fact, also politicians were intimidated by the arrest of one politician.
Well, I'll tell you what happened too along that line. 2 days before the election, either the Thursday or the Friday, the election was a Monday. It was either Thursday or Friday, the prosecutor announced that they had obtained permission from the Joint Court of Justice to start a criminal investigation against one of the candidates for vote buying. Now, what has happened in the meantime, that candidate has lost his seat, so they no longer need permission from the joint courts to prosecute him because he's no longer an MP, so he can be prosecuted like any regular citizen. But the point being that just 2 days before the election, there was this big report in the newspaper that this guy is going to be prosecuted for buying votes. You saw it. Yeah. And the timing was very peculiar.
So you said election meddling?
Well, that's what Silverius called uncanny investigations. She had an article and she said, just when it's time for these particular things to go down election, we have these uncanny investigations. That is one of those, I won't say it was uncanny because they had him under the gun for about, they had arrested him about a month before that or some weeks prior to that. So he already knew that they were looking at him. But 2 days before the election, they announced that they got permission to prosecute him. And what did we notice? His votes dropped by 75%, from 355 to 89.
That's a dramatic
That's a drop of 75%.
Yeah.
And that could be explained in only one way. Whatever he was doing, he stopped doing. Then we have the opposite side of the coin, Dr. Mercelina.
Yeah.
His votes jumped by 85%.
And they said he was doing nothing.
And I will tell you statistically, it is very, very abnormal for somebody who votes to increase by 85% within that, how many months? From when they announced the elections, April, May to August, 4 to 5 months, that your votes are going to almost double. So those things are the kind of situations that make you wonder what happened. In Akim's case, we have a pretty good idea of what caused his votes to drop by 75%. In Dr. Mercelina's case, the jury is still out as to how his votes increased by 85%. But that is almost unheard of occurrence statistically. The chances of that happening statistically are extremely low.
There are a number of variables that you can look at in this situation. In that, one, he was prime minister for 17. He was over government for 17 days before it fell. Right.
What a record!
And which is definitely, and the thing about it is he stayed quiet. He didn't get involved in the mudslinging and so forth, because Christopher took a real turn on him, and he was a coalition party member at the time. And a lot of people was like, why is MP Emmanuel so hard on the dock? Look at what happened. The dock went up, Christopher went down. That's another variable. I can't verify it, but it's part of the whole thing. And there are other factors involved.
Yeah, there could be other factors involved. It's just that 85% increase is so jarring that you have to stop and ask what could have happened here, because the 75% decrease by Akeem, we know what external factors caused it. But like you said, maybe the doctor had a very good campaign and he was very charismatic. I'll tell you the truth. I personally find the doctor as an individual, I know him as a doctor, but I also find him personally, I find him he's very likable. And one of the key things, people ask me about candidates, and I said, I cannot vote. People do not vote for somebody who they do not know. So, and the doctor is a doctor, he knows a lot of people. So there can be a lot of reasons for that big jump.
Yeah, and he's passionate about it. I remember having him here and saying, wow, the passion you have for St. Maarten, how he explained the problem, people can identify with that.
Well, that could probably be an explanation.
Another
for
variable there.
For his jump. But then another issue that drew my attention in the election was the sudden appearance of Richard Gibson as the number 2 candidate on the up list. That was kind of surprising to me. I understood that he explained, and Mr. Utley explained why that happened, but it doesn't take away from the fact that in Parliament and in government, there are 2 issues that have to be handled right now that have to do with Mr.
What are issues?
That is the issue of the ENIA, and the Dutch government is putting pressure on St. Maarten to come up with a solution for ENIA. And the other issue...
But it also threatens St. Maarten in terms of the interest rates.
Exactly. So St. Maarten has to make a decision about ENIA. Then a next thing that comes up around that comes around the corner is Mullet Bay. And I, for one, have been quite vocal for years. The island government should buy Mullet Bay back. Yeah. You cannot have the economy of St. Maarten. There can be no serious talk about any economic development in St. Maarten if you're keeping the main engine of economic growth offline and you're not saying anything about it.
But you're on record. We have you here on the show talking about it.
All the time. I keep saying it. You cannot get St. Maarten economy running if you have Mullet Bay closed. It's like having a jet on the runway with one engine off. It can never fly. We have to get Mullet Bay back. The problem is that Mr. Gibson represents Mr. Ansari and...
used to.
But what we do have is the court record showing that both him and Governor Saleh, I think he got 7.7 million guilders and Mr. Saleh received 2.9 million guilders. As the government in Curacao, as it became knowledge in Curacao, because this information was published...
Let me explain that. So they were...
they were on the board of directors.
Okay.
They were on the
I
board
want my viewers list.
Yeah. They were on the board of directors and they received
this money.
So
they were paid for their services as board members. Okay.
But as soon as Curacao, the population of Curacao found out, the people in Curacao found out about that, articles attacking Jaime Saleh appeared. And what was the problem with it? That this company, ENIA, had left 10, 20, 30,000 people, pensioners in Curacao, in a financially very unsteady, shaky, unclear position. His machinations in the company.
But the central bank wasn't doing their part in supervision.
Exactly. But the central bank, to their credit, they are the ones who took Ansari to court to get back this money to put back in to try to close the hole with this ENIA insurance. But the point is this, as soon as Curacao found out that Mr. Jaime Saleh had gotten this money, the Prime Minister of Curacao wrote the ex-governor, Jaime Saleh, a letter and told him, you may no longer represent or talk on behalf of Curacao because of your involvement with ENIA. And they told him, we're going to give you X amount of days to resign, and if you do not resign, we will take measures, we'll take the necessary steps ourselves.
Resign from
I think he was a member of the Council of State, Jaime Saleh, for Curacao. And they told him, resign. You were involved with India. You cannot represent us anymore. And that is what I found questionable, that a political party would accept a candidate who was in a similar position as Jaime Saleh, especially knowing that if this candidate gets elected, he has to sit in a parliament or a government that has to take decisions concerning India. And that can create the impression of a conflict of interest.
What would you say about politicians who are currently sitting in parliament and are associated with the same individual?
They are all in a position. Some of them are associated indirectly. Yeah. But these particular individuals, Jaime Saleh and Mr. Gibson, they were identified in court documents as being members of the board of directors. And we saw the position that Curacao took against Mr. Saleh for that particular incident. So all I'm saying is this.
But there's one politician who have a family member who was also included in that. That's
exactly. That is still sitting. But like I said, that is an indirect connection in that the politician did not receive the funds. Her son received it, a family member received it.
Yeah. I just bring that up so it's clear to my viewers and listeners to what you're speaking about.
But you understand why I draw the distinction.
Right.
Because in one case, it was a direct connection. And in the case of the politician, it is an indirect connection. Right. That's the reason why. And all I'm saying is that these type of issues create the impression of a conflict of interest. Because if an issue comes up that concerns Ansari, what will that candidate do? Can he take part in those deliberations?
Or have to recuse himself.
Yep. And those are the types of situations that provoke the article I mentioned and that make these type of individuals that represent the Dutch state, these agents provocateurs, that's the kind of things that causes them to ask these kind of questions. If they see that,
but it's fair.
They see it, they're going to ask it.
But there's the other thing too, Mr. President. It's fair. Now that you're saying that, and the reason why it is fair is because that particular individual will not take their crap. He couldn't be pushed around. And I saw him when he was Minister of Finance, and they don't like when they can't push you around, because the last government that sat there for 4 years, they really pushed that government around and got whatever they wanted.
They walked all over them.
So that's another reason too. Let's be fair and honest. You draw a picture, but my analysis from all of this is that, give or take, the Dutch was afraid as hell to have Richard Gibson in there because they know they couldn't do to him what they did to the others.
That will be left to be seen.
Yeah.
And I hope it will be so. But
I don't think so. I think, and I said, he was Minister of Finance. They had to deal with. He was also on the board of the supervisory of the
CFT.
CFT.
Yes.
Okay, so understand the whole thing. You know those same people.
Yeah, he knows them well.
And I think what happens in St. Maarten, every time there's election, someone cleverly comes from somewhere with a letter or article or something trying to influence the election or trying to bitter the juice. But let's be real, it's still local St. Maarten politics, and many people across the Atlantic Ocean want to have a government that they could control. Basically, they don't want strong individuals as politicians in St. Maarten government.
Well, I could imagine why. If I want to manipulate, I want somebody who can manipulate easily. But coming back to the main point was just we have to try to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. That's all.
But I think, that again too, let's be real, is an issue all over St. Maarten.
Yeah.
The conflict of interest is all over with all the different family connections. Maybe we need to fix that first. How can we fix it? We can never fix it because, go back to Mr. President, let's be real here. You remember when I mentioned to you about the culture of corruption and politics in St. Maarten culture? Then we'll have to wipe out all the families, bring all new families to start the whole political process over again. That can't be done. That'll be genocide.
Yes, I am. I can appreciate that you know, when you have such a generalized situation, it is difficult to work on it. It will have to be a generational thing where, as one generation goes out and the next one comes in, that particular type of culture would be replaced by something that is better. But it won't happen in our lifetime.
Or watered down, yeah.
Yeah, it won't happen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
There's something that, you know, 2 or 3 generations down the line, they might have a different perspective on these types of issues that than we have today.
The reason why I bring that up, and this is very important that we understand, the only person who realized and knew that whole connection of families very well was the late Dr. Kalawati. And he used it to his advantage. He brings families together, puts some others against each other, and stayed in government for a long time. He did very well, by the way, and did a lot of things for the island. But he understands the dynamics of the family and how important that was to bring them all together. Today, it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, you know, I remember the key sentence out of the Poirier report, because I read it many times. I know the report intimately, like I told you. And the key sentence that was used to put St. Maarten on the high Supreme Court was this. I'm going to translate it from the Dutch. It said, after a while, the leaders in St. Maarten found themselves in a situation where their administrative decisions were too much or too far made with the objective to maintain their position than for the benefit of the island. That was the conclusion of Poirier report.
Wasn't that correct?
Well, whether it was correct or not, that was the succinct conclusion of that report. And I remember it because I read it and I said, wow. And that is the sentence that Holland used to justify putting St. Maarten on the highest supervision.
Let's fast forward to 2024. It's happening today too.
Well, now that you mentioned 2024, the last report we had, the Price Waterhouse Integrity Report, that was done on September the 30th, 2013. The island did not have 3 years of separate status. And already the Dutch state ordered an investigation into the integrity on St. Maarten. And they claim that, again, come back to this agent provocateur, newspaper reports talking with citizens and business leaders on the island, we got the impression that this island is corrupt. And that is why they brought in Price Waterhouse in 2013 to do an integrity report on the island. So this issue has been playing for a long time, and it's going to continue to play as long as, like I pointed out, we don't have a generational shift.
Well, I have my view because we need strong people with a strong background, a strong backbone that can stand up and work diligently in the interest of this island. And at the same time, don't see the Dutch as some kind of enemy, but see the Dutch as a partner. Because there's no other way for us to move forward. What I've spent my whole lifetime with this nonsense of constantly always looking and we blame everything that's bad on the Dutch. And I think it's wrong. I've never said it like this before. I repeat again, read my lips or listen to my voice. We blame everything that's bad on the Dutch. We don't do anything bad. I know by saying that I offend a lot of my own people, but that's what I believe. That's my opinion.
I would like to make one small precision to your statement. Politicians blame everything on the Dutch. I do not believe that the general population share the same view, but you'll find that the view prevailing in political circles for obvious reasons.
And I use that as weight general because, again, it boils down to what we mentioned earlier in the show too, about the Dutch and the small group of people, the little clique that really view us as criminals and corrupt people. Okay,
drug dealers, money launderers, and it was money laundering, drug dealing, and corruption.
The point I'm trying to make here, I'm going to be very cautious in how I say this to you. I flew in 20 '09 to Saba. The Dutch State Secretary was there at the time, and I interviewed her. I asked her the questions in English. She answered me back in Dutch. I follow up in English. She said, no problem, but she gave me the interview. I spoke with a politician that same day, and the politician says to me, you know what? We're a small island. We can't do a lot for ourselves, but we can do a lot for ourselves at the same time. There's no need for us to be constantly in a fight with the Dutch. We need to cooperate in a way. And I think that attitude, looking back 4 years later, is the only island where I see some level of cooperation and mutual respect compared to the rest of the former Dutch Caribbean St. Louis Island. So maybe we need to change, our politicians need to change the way they think and do business with the Dutch. But you can't get it all your way.
I must agree with you that a lot of the fault or the blame for the relationship, a disturbed relationship, probably lies with our political class here. But on the other hand, it's easy for me or for you, but for me for sure, to have an opinion about it because I never dealt with these Dutch people. I do not know what kind of attitude, how they approach them, how they speak to them. If the way they speak to them, and I understood it too from one politician, Willem Maarten, he said that he was in Holland once, and the way the guy spoke to him, some Dutch politician, was very insulting.
And what he did? What was his response?
I do not know, but he reported that the guy was very unpleasant, to put it that way, in his approach to him. And then sometimes you would see the letters that they write, the tone of the letters. I see a lot of the letters that they write. And it is clear that we are in a hierarchical relationship. Hierarchical in the sense that they are over us. They tell us what to do. They dictate to us. Yeah? We are the ones who are in a subservient position, and they are the overlords. And that type of relationship is a typical inheritance of colonialism, that the colonialism
right.
people talk about. But that type of relationship is inherently...
it's inherent, as you say.
When I say inherently unstable, and it leads to a lot of conflicts because...
There's only one solution to that. There's only one solution to that.
Yeah, cut the umbilical cord.
And are we prepared for that? That's the other thing. There's only one solution, and I think we all know what that solution is. But at the same time, Mr. Brison, there are a lot of poor people in St. Maarten. Well, and I don't think they want to cut that umbilical cord.
I myself could understand their position. And from a geopolitical perspective, it is always good to have a connection to a powerful country. Everybody's looking for alliances. NATO. What is going on in Ukraine right now? Ukraine is desperately screaming for the West to come and help them.
Yeah, because they have weapons that they can't use.
And they're on their own. Everybody's looking on and wringing their hands saying, boy, you know what a pity thing. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. But nobody's jumping in to help.
Well, I won't say that because they're waiting on the U.S. government now to give them the approval to go deeper, go and use the weapons.
But that's the point I'm trying to make. If you are allied with these countries now, like the countries in NATO, they could call on the other NATO countries, come and help me, because we're in something together. But when you're all on your own, you can't call on anybody to help. So I would say from a geopolitical perspective, being a small country, it is very advantageous to have a relationship with a bigger country. It might not be always convenient to you, but it's a good, I can imagine my people see it as a nice, safe haven. But I can understand that.
It's different because when your mother country is a wealthy country, among the 10 most wealthiest countries in the world, there's a problem here because then they go around and start, like they're doing right now in the Caribbean, or so-called Caribbean brothers and sisters are being bought out by them. So when you go ask them for help, they're not going to bother with you. And I told that to Linda, to Arundel, Rhoda Arundel the other day. You all are talking about the Caribbean and going here and going there. They don't give a damn about us. because they're already bought out by other country in Europe.
Well, I have done a lot of work in that particular area of I would say international law, the relationships, and one of the things that the Antilles we face is this: we have been declared by a very suspicious circumstance, but we have been declared decolonized.
Yeah, I know, that's an old story.
And because of that, we are part of the Dutch kingdom. And diplomatically, it makes it very awkward for a foreign sovereign state like Grenada or St. Vincent to deal with us directly, because they say, no, you are part of the kingdom. If I have to deal with you, I want to deal with the kingdom.
Well, I wasn't referring to that.
But I'm talking about that. You're talking about assistance.
No. I was referring for support. No, over the years.
That's what the support.
No, I mean, in a different way. You can't go and say, hey, Antigua, Barbados, all the different countries, look, we have this problem with the Dutch state. This is the situation. They don't care because they are getting assistance.
Yeah, they're getting exactly because
it doesn't matter
they have a different relationship than Holland and us, because they are a sovereign. These are sovereign countries.
Even if sovereign or not, the point of the matter is that I say here and I maintain they're bought out. Well, they're bought out. So when you're not going to go against anybody who's giving you money, financial support, that is giving 200 million Eastern Caribbean dollars to build homes in your country. You're not going to do that. Doesn't matter what it is.
Exactly. The money always plays a role, but also diplomatically, these islands are sovereign countries. They are just as sovereign internationally as Holland, and they deal government to government. So when you come to them, their first thing is this: I don't want to offend Holland by getting involved in your internal affairs. They see us as an internal affair of the kingdom.
Whether it's internal or not, I go back again and say, if you look at the world, the whole global politics and the United Nations, it's a mess. It's a mess. You've seen conflicts. The one in Ukraine have to do with mistakes. I don't want to get into the politics here. But Russia, if you know the history of Russia and how they had to fend off enemies over centuries, they don't want certain people on their border. They don't want NATO on their border.
They don't want any enemies next to them.
They don't want NATO on their border. And we all know that. And to try to bring in Ukraine into NATO
is provocative.
Well, let's be real. We have to let the people know exactly what's happening. This show is not about that. This show is about us in St. Maarten in the Caribbean. I just brought it up because of what you just said. The politics is a very strange thing, Mr. Brison. It's not what it was in 1950.
It has evolved, I must agree to that. But the last point I wanted to mention about the election was Mr. Olivier Arundel.
Hold that point, because I got to go to a break. All right? So,
okay, good. Go right ahead.
In case you've just joined us, this is August. Now my guest is Mr. Denicio Brison. Mr. Brison is a jurist. He's president and founder of Pro Swaliga Foundation. When we come back, we'll continue speaking with him right here on Oral Gibbs Live on Hot 99.9 FM radio. Please stay with us. My guest on the Oral Gibbs Live is Mr. Denicio Brison. You're either following us on Facebook, YouTube, or on Hot 99.9 FM radio. And Mr. Brison, just before the break, I asked you to hold that thought. So that thought on Mr. Arundel, you want to start there?
Yeah, Mr. Olivier Arundel.
Yeah.
And the question is, has this election, did this election mean that we have seen the last of him? And that is the final query.
That's a rhetorical question.
Well, the election had some results. He did not obtain what he was looking for. So will he now go away quietly? Or will we see him still around on the scene? That is the question that, we're going to have to face going forward. What I must say is this: the amount of votes he got, if he were on another party, he would have he would have been sitting in Parliament today because he did he is a high vote getter. He got over 500 votes.
Well, collectively, but
the party got
yeah.
His own was how much? 300.
I don't think
I don't
was,
know.
Yeah.
But anyway, if he had gotten those votes on another party, he would have been in Parliament.
Yeah.
Maybe with the amount of votes he got, he would have been in Parliament.
Well, if the turnout was low, it would have been different.
Yeah.
If the turnout was lower, he probably would have got a seat.
Maybe. But now the question is, he didn't get a seat. Will he quietly go away, or will he continue to hang around?
But he's scared. He had the politicians very afraid. They were scared. What you say?
He was a wild card. I would put that I'll throw that into the mix. That he was a wild card, and that everybody was wondering what is going to be his following. That is now clear. We know exactly how many followers he had.
But at the same time, they were saying, do I want to sit in Parliament with this guy? That's where they were, the fear.
That's the next thing. These are politicians. And if his one seat could have gotten you to be a prime minister.
Go ahead, I agree with you.
Yeah. Then as a politician, you would say, boy, you know what? As distasteful as he is, and then you use your regular excuse, but the people put him there.
No, let me go back to your biggest loser, MP Christopher Emmanuel. He said, and this is not verbatim, by the way.
Paraphrasing.
Just paraphrase. That since the election, he called and congratulated and so forth, but they haven't bothered with him. And he's in a coalition with them up until a period of time in August, right? The fact of the matter is that Christopher is the biggest loser. They don't have no interest to speak with him anymore.
Well, Kevin Mengret explained that.
So why say, they haven't talked to me, they haven't called? They're not going to. It's just like you said earlier, they're politicians. So
you have nothing to contribute to them. You know what Kevin Mengret said election before the last when he got elected? Apropos of another politician. He said, I'm not going to talk to you, you're not even an MP anymore. He says, I'm not going to talk to you, you're not even an MP anymore.
So you see the attitude that we have today. Yeah.
You're not an MP, so why should I waste time talking to you?
So you think Christopher will come back?
I imagine that he is probably like Olivier, thinking, will this be the last we have heard of him? Just like with Olivier, we have to wait and see what he decides to do next.
Well, one analyst was telling me that if this government lasts the full term, that's it for them.
Yeah, that's the key thing, that if it were to last the full term, you would get him enough time to die a natural death.
Yeah. What's that? Natural death.
Yeah. They just wither on the wine. You know, this is spent 4 years just twisting in the wind.
Yeah.
He just die a natural death.
But it's hard when you serve your country, whether it's prime minister or member of parliament or minister, and you're out. It takes some time to adjust to the different world. Huh?
Yeah, living in the political wilderness is no fun, I can imagine. But that is one of the things you're going to have to see. How they're going to weather this storm out, this period in the wilderness. Are they going to come back stronger, or are they just going to fade away? And that is what we're going to find out from Christopher in the next years. Then next thing, how long is this government going to last? That's a next wild card. Because we have the same actors who caused the confusion the last time. They're back in there. And you know how it goes in life. If you want to know how somebody is going to behave tomorrow, look at how they behaved yesterday. Because past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior.
Well, look, there are a lot of marriages that are not sweet, but they're still there.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that they come to the conclusion that there's more to gain there's more to lose than to gain by busting this thing up. But like I said, past behavior, that is the hard thing. I cannot ignore your past behavior. That is why, for example, if you go to look for a job in a bank and you have a record, or you were in prison for embezzling, the bank will say, absolutely not. You might be a nice guy going forward, but your past behavior scares me.
Even if you have changed your life and turned it over to God.
That past behavior scares me.
But how you see the factor of Olivier Arentel? Did it have an impact on the results, you think?
Yeah, well, he took away 500 or something, 500 and change for votes he pulled out of the basket.
Okay.
So that must have hurt somebody directly or indirectly. Most likely, directly it hurt somebody because those were 500 votes that plucked from somewhere else. Those people who voted for him, they were probably voting someplace else.
But I think there were a lot of firsts in this election.
Yeah.
The shooting of his partner.
Yes.
That was something that no one ever thought
that is too awful for words. That has cast such a pall over the entire election that the less said about it, the better. Let's hope that the authorities conduct a thorough investigation, because we know it's a common joke that if you want to kill somebody, you want to murder somebody, bring them to St. Maarten, because it will not be solved. And it would not surprise me if right now that case is not in the cold case file already.
I was told by someone in law enforcement that it's easier to solve a crime in New York City than St. Maarten. Can you imagine that? A city with what 8.5 million people to an island with just over 100,000 people.
I'm still walking around perplexed at how they have not been able to solve the murder of David Priest. Remember, he was shot a couple of years, about 10, 15 years ago at Casablanca.
Yeah.
He was coming to meet me. I was sitting waiting on him when I got a report that he had been shot.
Wow.
When I rushed there, I found this debacle. And up to now, I cannot understand, with all the amount of contacts, leads, etc., that case has remained unsolved. And I used to go to the police and ask them, once a year, I used to make it my business to go and ask, what are you doing about it? They had zero interest. That was already in
that's the key word you use.
Yeah.
Zero interest.
That case was already in the the cold case file?
Yeah.
That was done in the cold case file. And I hope, but I have the impression that Olivier's wife murder is sliding towards the cold case file.
Yeah, and then it's I said it was a tragedy.
It was not only a tragedy, it was a tragedy of, I would say, of Greek comedy proportions. It was like something that played out of something that somebody wrote, a script, that he would come to the island, he would get involved, and this tragedy befall him.
Yeah.
It is too bizarre.
And the thing is, a lot of people liked it because you could say what you wanted, but hey, you had this lady taking her partner's back, watching his back. You don't often try and get that.
I was surprised at how she stood by him.
Yeah.
The key point, though, and this is the last I'll say about Mr. Olivier, is this: he made a lot of enemies.
Well, St. Maarten is a unique island. I can tell you from experience. You can have a lot of enemies that you don't know either.
Well, but he went out and poked a stick into the wasp nest. He made a lot of enemies.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
I hope you haven't made any enemies today.
Every television show I do, if I didn't make a friend or enemy, it's because I didn't say anything.
But you didn't do your job properly.
So that's a part of the business. You're only as good as your last show. And I've said things earlier in this interview with you, where I blame us as a people for some of our own problems, and we don't want to hear that. We don't want to reflect on what we're doing as a people. We always look at outside and blame others for problems that we have caused, but we don't want to admit, and that's unfortunate. And I said it here on this interview with you earlier in the interview, in reference to the relationship with the Dutch, etc.
I'm going to quote you Bill Parcells, the ex-coach of the New York Giants football team. He said this: "You are what your record says you are." And what is our record? 12 governments in 14 years.
And counting, because everyone is holding their breath, because people are saying 2025 election again.
You are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
12 governments in 14 years.
So
that's our record.
I'm not a betting man, but you want to bet $1?
Huh? Yeah, I could risk $1 here. Why the hell not?
What's your bet?
Huh? Well, I would bet that they will pass Carnival, next Carnival. They'll make it the next Carnival.
Wow, that's a try. I feel probably the same way. Let's hope you're wrong and I'm wrong.
Well, you know, I must admit, that's a date I threw out because I keep hearing it constantly, so it penetrates. Everybody keeps saying, get them till next Carnival.
But you know, Sint, a great country, great island, a lot of good people on this island, a lot of good people.
I'll tell you why St. Maarten can survive. Because there's a dichotomy, a complete separation between the business world and the political world. And as long as the business world could operate, when I say that, the plane could land, tourists would come off, they could have a great time, we could offer a good tourist product, the economy will continue to move and money will continue to circulate, irregardless of what the government does. They cannot stop American Airlines from landing and discharging 200 people on the island who want to come have a great time, and they can have the great time in peace and in quiet. As long as that is preserved, the money-making machine, the politicians can afford to carry on with their shenanigans because they're not getting involved with the money-making operation of the island.
But let me ask you, do you think St. Maarten is as corrupt as they claim?
I have no clue. I always have a problem with somebody. I talked about that. And the reason was this. You have to use the statistics you have available. In 2014, when Pricewaterhouse had done the first integrity report, they reported that there had been 7 prosecutions for politicians. And out of them, only 2 had resulted in a conviction. 5 had gone nowhere. So then the point, where's the corruption? Because you went to court and you couldn't prove it. But since then, in this same article from Mr. René Zwart in Koninkrijk's dossier, he is boasting that there is no other country in the kingdom that has the amount of politicians who have been convicted for fraud or corruption than St. Maarten. He boasts that right now there are enough people convicted, politicians convicted, to form a football team with a good reserve bench.
We're going to build a special wing in the prison.
That's what he wrote. He said St. Maarten has enough politicians who have been convicted to form a football team, plus give you a reserve bench. So you ask about corruption. That is the statistics.
What do you think about, a few years back, Transparency International had a report on poverty in St. Maarten, 75% population below poverty level. You believe that?
If it's statistically proven, yes, I would not doubt it. And I'll tell you why I don't doubt it. If you ride around the island and you see the amount of substandard houses that people are occupying, you know they are not making plenty of money because they can't afford to pay a rent. That rent is $200 a month. Who's going to pay that? Somebody who's making $900, they could afford a $200 rent. And there's lots of houses like that. So those people alone, those type of housing alone is an indication.
But then again, too, and here's a contradiction. Step outside the station. Watch the traffic with all the luxury vehicles driven by both our own and outsiders. It tells you a different story.
Well, it tells you very plainly that there's a moneyed class and there's an underclass. And the moneyed class, on St. Maarten especially, is very prominent because the island is small. We could see the houses they live in. When I drove here, I could see the house. I could see the big luxury apartments going up. I could tell those are the folks with the cash who are living there.
So,
but when I leave there now and I make a left and I go into Colby and the side roads and the dirt roads and so forth, then I see a different situation.
because when you drive in St. Maarten, it doesn't look like the roads in the Dominican Republic. You go to the Dominican Republic, see a lot of old cars on the road, without doors or windows and so forth. You don't see that in St. Maarten.
No. As a matter of fact, on St. Maarten, you can't see. They won't even they won't pass the inspection.
So this, it's amazing because still when you compare us to the region envy us in a way.
Well, I'll tell you something. I just came back from 10 days in my favorite islands, Guadeloupe and Martinique. I love those places.
Oh man, I love those two. I prefer Martinique though.
Yeah, well, I too, because I stayed longer in Martinique. I like Martinique.
Yeah.
But when you want to see people, I had the first, this is the first occasion I had to go into a government housing project. In Martinique and Guadeloupe, there's lots of them. You come into the city, you see these tall towers, 9, 10 stories. And I ended up staying at a B&B in the heart of Pointe-à-Pitre.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was looking for a place and I saw this B&B. They had a good price. I said, let me try it out. And it turned out to be an enterprising individual who rented out the top floor of one of those apartment complexes. So I passed and I saw them, but I didn't know what I like inside. And these are government housing. When I went in there, I was shocked at how spacious and well appointed the place was. It was very well appointed. Those countries, if you see in the roads that they have in those countries, don't ask Martinique, amazing.
Oh man,
those folks live like princes of the French state.
Yeah.
So when you say us, unless you go there and you see how they are living.
Well, it's two things because I go to Martinique
and the same reason, because they keep a relationship with a rich European country. And they manage to make use of that.
You go to Guadeloupe or Martinique, especially Martinique, the roads are beautiful. Ooh, unbelievable.
Incredible.
I feel like I'm driving in New York.
I was all over Martinique and all I could do was open my mouth.
Oh, you're surprised.
Beautiful roads.
Incredible.
And there's no industry. The only industry they have there really going on is agriculture. Apart from that, there are no factories. Right. There's nothing going on.
And that's the other thing too. The agriculture and the fishery is so good. You can get all these different provisions and fish there that you can't get in St. Maarten.
But the very first time I went to Martinique, I was surprised. I was reading the newspaper, the French newspapers, and this lady was talking about, her livelihood, she's doing and so forth, and she had 9 children. And I was shocked when she's going to report that her livelihood is off agriculture. I think she used to plant cassava, something like that. But that was how this lady earned her living.
Yeah.
It wasn't when I went around later on, I'm going to realize there are about 30,000 people in Martinique who live off agriculture. Yeah. Now, I come from Aruba. I do not know one single person who lives off agriculture. And here, this great swath of this lady with 9 children, and she can report that she lives off of agriculture. She has this land and she plants. I said, what? People living off, you could actually farm and live? Well, you're not living a luxurious life.
Right.
It's probably subsistence. But the amount of people that can live off agriculture because the country is fruitful and it rains a lot.
Oh, yeah. Almost every day it's raining.
Multiple times a day.
Yeah. And the thing is that now when you tell them you're from St. Maarten, you know what they like about St. Maarten and Martinique and Guadeloupe? You know what they like?
Tell me.
The nightlife.
Oh, yeah. Don't ask about that. Yes.
They don't have that, so they love St. Maarten.
Those islands are very, very conservative as far as nightlife is concerned.
Yeah.
Very conservative. I would stay in a place called Malogosier, which is a little village outside of Pointe-à-Pitre.
Yeah.
And it had one casino in there.
And not like the casinos we have here, by the way.
Not only casino. No, small. It's not small.
Right.
It's not like our level, but the point is that's the only one. Right. And when you're going in as a local person, they screen you as if you're going into a foreign country.
I've seen it, but I've never gone in because I stay far from casinos. But
I went in once or twice for whatever reason I wandered in. But that's the only casino. I think there's one, maybe next up in a place called Saint Francois, which is also a next station balnéaire, a next beach town.
Right.
But one casino.
Yeah.
No nightlife and so forth, the discotheques. And when I was there, they had a curfew because they had some violence with young people. So they tell them get out road by 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So nothing much going on there at night.
You know, I saw in Martinique there's a law attorney, and on his door he have posted that he is a Martinique attorney, not a European. That was kind of strange, but then he was sending a message.
Of course. So if you're a European and you get here, you know to leave, and if you're a Martinican and you get here, you know to stay.
He was one of those Martinicans who was pro Martinique all the way. You know, yeah.
Well, one of the things that also attracts me to Martinique is that it's the birthplace of Frantz Fanon.
Yeah.
And when you go there, the people know about him. You would find his books being sold.
Yeah.
I passed a housing project called Frantz Fanon. I also passed a project called Maurice Bishop.
Really?
Named after Maurice Bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these are islands but also, have you been to St. Vincent and Grenada and those places?
I have to go there.
Okay. I'm going back there in December again.
Yeah.
But the very first time I went to St. Vincent, I was shocked. They have a better infrastructure than us.
Really?
Yeah. If you see the place, because that was before the last hurricane and before the volcano exploded, but that was a prosperous looking island. I don't know how they maneuver themselves around, but the roads there were perfect. And if you see the amount of palatial homes built up against the hills and so forth, St. Vincent was impressive.
The Prime Minister is Ralph Gonsalves.
Dr. Ralph Gonsalves.
Yeah, I was at a conference where he was speaking at the University of St. Maarten, and I was very impressed with that gentleman. He's incredible. I don't really believe in the whole reparation thing, but when he spoke about it, he's very convincing.
Well, the whole reparation, the engine for the reparation movement is at the University of the West Indies. As a matter of fact, the principal of the University of the West Indies, Dr. Hilary Beckles, he wrote a book, Britain's Black Debt. And in that book, he went into great detail to justify and to present arguments for reparations. And he and Dr. Gonsalves and the other leaders of those islands, they are all from the same place. Right. All of them are University of West Indies graduates. They're from the UE.
He's also a lawyer, right?
Huh? Yeah. So you would find that he definitely comes from the right place to be able to speak the way he spoke.
Yeah. He really articulated very convincingly.
About, let's say, 2007, Dr. Hilary Beckles was here. What's his name? Sojaref brought him here in connection with Martin Luther King Day. And he held a talk about reparations. Dr. Hilary Beckles in 2007 already. And so they come out of the same type of environment.
It's amazing, because I'm a graduate of the University of New York at Buffalo, and Michael Manley came to the university to speak. Now, I'm not a Jamaican, but I'm a Caribbean man. Let me tell you, I was feeling so proud to sit in that auditorium and listen to Michael Manley speak to the audience. Incredible, man.
Yeah, the Caribbean produced a lot of great guys.
Yeah. And those were leaders. I hope that we can have some strong leaders like that.
Well, I'll tell you.
We had it in the past with Claude, but that's
I tell you, Claude would rank about those type of leaders, and that he was charismatic, and he also
without the education that they had, by the way. Claude
exactly.
Didn't have,
and that is true because they were all very educated guys. They were from Oxford and these type of fancy universities in Britain. But Claude was a generational leader in that. The change he brought between his generation and this generation, up to today, you and I are still benefiting from the changes he put in motion.
Yeah. We're benefiting both ways, in a way. Would you say? I didn't expect me to say that, right?
No, you surprised me.
Both ways. Good and bad.
Yes, everything has its good and its bad side. Yeah. But I would say that
the good outweigh the bad.
Yeah, I would say on balance, somewhat the good outweighs the bad because say whatever you say, St. Maarten is a great place.
Yeah.
The last census, when I read the census and they told me that there are 110 different nationalities living in St. Maarten, I was shocked.
Yeah.
Until a couple of weeks ago, I was up in South Reward buying some mangoes under a tree. And I saw a lady sitting there, a white lady, and I sat to speak to her. And I gathered she was a foreigner, I could hear from her accent, but she spoke good English. So I asked her, where are you from? From Slovenia.
Slovenia, wow. Slovenia?
Yeah.
Wow.
How the hell did you end up on St. Maarten from Slovenia? That's
Eastern
way
European
out in Eastern
country,
Europe. She's here. But she explained me what happened to her. She said she was on a cruise ship and she visited the island. She was working as a crew member.
Fell in love with it.
Yeah. You know who did the same thing too? A guy, I used to work at a hotel, and there was a guy called Livio.
Augusto Marini too?
Yeah.
Also Augusto. Livio still in St. Maarten.
Yeah, he's still in St. Maarten. But his wife used to work on a cruise ship.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they ended up here.
Yeah. And also Augusto Marini, who was a maitre d' at Muller Bay back in the 70s.
They came here on cruise ships, saw the place and stayed. Well, 110 nationalities are here. That means that whatever anybody could say or do, there is no other place on this earth the size of St. Maarten that has 110 different nationalities here. That is I always say this, that is a tremendous vote of confidence in how we run our affairs. That is why they're here.
And I must say, the leaders like the late Claude Watty and Clem the Bigger made it possible in a way. And I was very close with Claude, and I could say this, he was an amazing person. No one is perfect, but I gotta agree with you, we are today where we are because of many of his policies.
You know who told me the same thing about him? My good friend Julian Rollox. He was also very close to him. He said Claude was an amazing man.
Yeah. It's just, you hear about other leaders or so-called leaders, but this guy was in the league by himself. Sometimes I'm standing in the office speaking with him, and the door would open, like the door open there, and he'd say, check with me next week around 10 o'clock, I'll have an answer for you. I thought, how he know? And the person that opened that door was a little elderly Haitian guy, He remembered everyone, every problem that they had. And when they came to him, they didn't have to expose their problem to other people. He knew it, tell them, come back next week, it will be taken care of. And it was taken care of.
He was legendary for being a fixer.
And writing a note, you better give Denicio a job.
I had a godfather of mine. He told me he came to St. Maarten from Aruba, and he met Claude. He said he knew him from the younger days.
Right.
And he told him, yeah, you know what, I'm looking for a job, and I'm interested in a job at the airport. And Claude told him, you know what, I'm gonna look into it for you. He said he forgot about that, and about X months later, he met Claude. And Claude asked him, are you working? He said, working where? He said, at the airport. I arranged a job for you. You don't collect your money yet? He said when he went down, they had 6 months pay with He was on the job, he didn't know.
Wow, it's amazing.
And Claude just mentioned to him, I'm going to take it. He said 6 months later, he forgot about the job. Claude met him, asked him, how the job you working at? He said, which job? He said, yeah, the airport, you're working on there, I'll put you on the job down there.
We have an interview with Ivan Davila on our channel. So if you have a chance, if you haven't seen it, take a look at it. Ivan Davila came from Curacao as a young man, and he explained everything about his life in St. Maarten, working and meeting Claude Watty and getting to go to America and study. Inspirational. As a Carolinian in those days, coming to St. Maarten, exceeding the years that you qualify for scholarship, because at age 27 you no longer can apply for a scholarship, and Claude made it happen, and he didn't even know him. And those are stories that go on and on.
Yeah, everybody could tell you how good Claude was to them. I know a guy from Montserrat. He told me he was trying to buy a house in Madame Estate, and he needed a mortgage and whatever the thing was. And he said Claude intervened, and he got a mortgage immediately.
Yeah. And you never asked people where you're from?
He said he was from Montserrat. He couldn't vote.
All right.
So that's the next thing. He was not one that was asking where you're from and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He never promoted xenophobia.
Yeah.
I don't do it either because my mother's not from here.
Yeah, we all Caribbean men, man.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be doing that, right?
My mother came here from Santo Domingo.
Yeah,
my father's from here, but mother's not from here. So we all mix together.
You remember what Claude said? I'm a proud Caribbean man.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Not a St. Maarten, a Caribbean man.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Brison, always a pleasure having you. Anything else you want to add in closing?
No, that's it.
Yeah.
I think we have said everything that has to be said.
Always a pleasure having you, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And that's it for now. See you next time on Oral Gives Live on Facebook, YouTube, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. Take care. Bye.